Barolo is called the king of wines, but when you are standing in front of a shelf trying to choose your first bottle, it can feel more like the king of confusion. You see, Barolo, Barolo Riserva, Canubi, Brunate, Busia, La Morra, and Serralunga d'Alba. One bottle costs $40. Another costs $150. A tasting note says the wine smells like roses, cherries, tar, leather, truffles, and a damp forest. Then someone tells you the bottle you just bought may need another 15 years before it is ready. At that point, you are no longer choosing wine. You are trying to solve a puzzle. So let's solve it. By the end of this video, you will understand what Barolo actually is, why bottles from neighboring hills can taste completely different, what the unfamiliar names on the label mean, and how to choose a first bottle you can enjoy without waiting until retirement. We will also decode a Barolo label, one word at a time, and you will discover why the most impressive-looking word on the bottle may not be the one that matters most. First, let's clear up the biggest misunderstanding. Barolo is not a grape. The grape is Nebbiolo. Barolo is a red wine made entirely from Nebbiolo within a small, legally protected area in Piemonte, in northwestern Italy. Remember it like this: Nebbiolo is the grape, Barolo is the wine, and Barolo is also the name of one of the villages where the wine is produced. Yes, the same word refers to the wine, the production area, and a village. That is your first introduction to Italian wine. On the bottle, you will usually see Barolo DOCG. DOCG stands for Denominazione di Origine Controllata e Garantita. You do not need to memorize the full expression. It tells you that the wine comes from the official Barolo area and follows its production rules. The most important rule is easy to remember. Barolo must be made from 100% Nebbiolo. But that creates an obvious question. When every Barolo is made from the same grape, why can two bottles taste so different? The answer begins with the hills. Barolo comes from the Langhe Hills in Piemonte. The landscape looks almost too perfect to be real, with steep vineyards, narrow roads, medieval villages, stone castles, and rows of vines covering almost every available slope. From a distance, it looks peaceful and simple. Up close, it is anything but simple. The Barolo region is not one enormous vineyard producing one uniform type of wine. It is a patchwork of ridges, slopes, valleys, villages, and individual growing areas. Drive for a few minutes, and the soil can change. Move around the side of a hill, and the amount of sunlight can change. Climb higher, and the temperature can drop. One vineyard may face the warm afternoon sun. Another may sit on a cooler slope where the grapes ripen more slowly. Even two vineyards separated by a narrow road can produce wines with noticeably different personalities. Think of Barolo as a small city made up of different neighborhoods. Everyone speaks the same language, but each neighborhood has its own accent. Nebbiolo is the language. The villages and vineyards provide the accents. The names you are most likely to see include Barolo, La Morra, Castiglione Faletto, Monforte d'Alba, Serralunga d'Alba, Verduno, and Novello. You do not need to memorize all of them. Later, we will reduce the main village styles to 3 simple choices: perfume, balance, or power. The Langhe Hills are also famous for autumn fog. The Italian word for fog is nebbia, and the name Nebbiolo is often connected with it. Nebbiolo ripens late, so the grapes can remain on the vines as mist begins to settle across the valleys. Whether the grape was named directly after the fog is still debated. But the image is perfect. A difficult grape ripening slowly on cool, misty hills. Nebbiolo is built around contradiction. It often looks delicate in the glass. A young Barolo may be transparent ruby rather than deep purple, and as the wine ages, the color can move toward garnet, brick red, and orange around the edge. Then you taste it. The wine that looked gentle suddenly gives you high acidity, powerful tannins, and enough structure to dry your mouth almost immediately. It arrives wearing a silk jacket and carrying a baseball bat. That contrast is one of the reasons people become obsessed with Barolo. It can look light, but taste powerful. It can smell beautiful, but feel severe. It can be elegant and aggressive at the same time. A young Barolo may smell of red cherry, raspberry, rose, violet, orange peel, herbs, licorice, and spice. As it matures, the aromas may move toward dried flowers, tobacco, leather, mushrooms, truffle, autumn leaves, and forest floor. The classic description is tar and roses. That sounds like the name of a perfume nobody would buy, but in the right glass, it makes sense. You may first smell something floral and graceful. Then, a few seconds later, something dark, smoky, earthy, and almost medicinal appears. You do not need to find every aroma mentioned in a tasting note. Wine is not a test. There is no examiner waiting to mark you wrong because you found cherry instead of raspberry, and you do not need to invent truffles because somebody else found them. The important thing is to notice how the wine changes. Nebbiolo can transform dramatically after it is poured. The glass you taste at the beginning of dinner may seem like a different wine an hour later. That slow transformation is one of the great pleasures of Barolo. The basic production process is straightforward. The Nebbiolo grapes are harvested, brought to the winery, crushed, and fermented in contact with their skins. Those skins contribute color, aroma, flavor, and tannin. After fermentation, the wine must mature before it can be released. Regular Barolo must age for at least 38 months, and at least 18 of those months must be spent in wood. Barolo Riserva must age for at least 62 months, including at least 18 months in wood. This is where many beginners make their first mistake. They see Riserva and assume it means better. It does not. Riserva tells you that the wine has completed a longer required aging period before release. It does not guarantee that you will prefer it. A regular Barolo from a brilliant producer may be more enjoyable than a Riserva from an average producer. A Riserva may also be more expensive, more structured, or still too young to show its best. Treat Riserva as information, not as a gold medal. You may also hear Barolo producers described as traditional or modern. Traditionally styled wines were often linked with longer skin contact and large wooden casks, while more modern styles were often linked with shorter extraction and smaller oak barrels. That division once caused intense debate, but today the reality is far less dramatic. Many producers combine older knowledge with modern precision. For a beginner, the useful question is not which side a producer belongs to. The useful question is this: is this bottle ready to enjoy now, or was it built to develop slowly over many years? That answer matters far more when you are choosing wine for Saturday night. Now we reach the part that usually makes Barolo feel complicated: the villages. Instead of memorizing a long list, divide them into 3 broad personalities: perfume, balance, power. These are not strict rules. The producer, vineyard, growing season, and age of the bottle can always change the result. Treat this as a map, not a set of commandments. Perfume. La Morra and Verduno. La Morra is often associated with fragrant and graceful Barolo. Its wines may show red fruit, flowers, spice, and a softer overall impression. That does not make La Morra weak. The best examples can be serious, complex, and capable of developing for decades, but they often lead with aroma rather than force. If Barolo from Serralunga d'Alba is a stone fortress, La Morra is an open window filled with the smell of roses. For a beginner looking for elegance and perfume, La Morra can be a smart starting point. Verduno also belongs on the more aromatic side. Its Barolo can be floral, spicy, lively, and filled with red fruit. Some examples show a distinctive, peppery character. Verduno is less famous among casual buyers, which can make it an interesting place to find wines with personality. Balance. Barolo and Castiglione, Falletto. The village of Barolo often sits near the middle of the style spectrum. Its wines can combine fragrance, structure, and depth. They may not feel as soft as the gentlest wines from La Morra, but they may not feel as severe as a young bottle from Serralunga d'Alba. A well-made wine from the village of Barolo can offer a useful introduction to the region as a whole. Castiglione. Falletto also combines elegance and structure. Its wines may be fragrant, precise, mineral, and firmly tannic without feeling heavy. There is power, but there is also lift. If La Morra is silk and Serralunga d'Alba is stone, Castiglione Falletto is a steel blade wrapped in velvet. For many Barolo drinkers, this is where elegance and strength meet. Power. Monforte d'Alba and Serralunga d'Alba. Monforte d'Alba generally moves toward a darker, deeper, and more muscular style. Its wines can feel earthy, spicy, and strongly built. They may show darker fruit and more obvious tannins, especially when young. When you already enjoy bold red wines, Monforte d'Alba may be exactly what you want. When you want something soft and effortless tonight, it may demand more patience. Serralunga d'Alba is famous for some of the most powerful and long-lived Barolo. Young bottles can be tight, firm, and stubborn. You may smell something beautiful, take a sip, and feel as though the wine has locked the door and swallowed the key. But when the right bottle receives enough time, that structure can become extraordinary depth, perfume, and balance. Serralunga d'Alba is ideal for someone who wants to keep wine for the future. It is not always the easiest first date. And what about Novello? Novello is another name worth knowing, especially because of growing areas such as Ravera. Its wines can combine freshness, perfume, and serious structure. They may need time, but they often carry power without feeling heavy. Here is the version to remember in the wine shop. For perfume and elegance, look toward La Morra or Verduno. For balance, try Barolo or Castiglione Falletto. For power and long aging, explore Monforte d'Alba or Serralunga d'Alba. That guide will not predict every bottle, but it is far more useful than choosing one because the label looks expensive. Now let's decode a bottle. Imagine the label shows these words: Barolo, DOCG, Brunate, Riserva, and a harvest year. What does each part tell you? Barolo DOCG identifies the wine and its protected production area. Brunate identifies a specific growing area. Riserva tells you that the wine completed the longer aging requirement. The harvest year tells you when the grapes were picked. But none of those is the first thing you should look for. The most important name on the bottle is the producer. The producer makes decisions at every stage: how the vines are farmed, when the grapes are picked, how the wine is fermented, how long it remains with the skins, what kind of wood is used, and when the wine is finally released. A careful producer working with a less famous vineyard can make a far better wine than a careless producer using grapes from a celebrated location. So begin with the producer. Then consider whether the wine is ready for the moment when you plan to drink it. After that, consider the general style of the village. Only then should you worry about the famous name of the vineyard. Officially recognized geographical areas within Barolo are called Menzioni Geografiche Aggiuntive, usually shortened to MGA. In simple terms, an MGA is a named growing area. Names such as Brunate, Bussia, Mon Privato, Ravera may appear on labels. These names tell you where the grapes were grown. They do not create an official ranking from best to worst. A famous MGA may cost more because it has a strong reputation, very little available land, and high demand. But a famous place does not rescue poor winemaking. For your first bottle, remember this order: producer, readiness to drink, village style, and then the specific MGA. Imagine you are choosing between two bottles. The first is a young Serralunga d'Alba Riserva from a celebrated growing area. It has an impressive label, a high price, and a reputation for lasting decades. The second is a slightly older basic Barolo from a trusted producer. It has no famous vineyard name. It costs less, and the wine merchant says it is already open, aromatic, and drinking beautifully. Which is the better bottle? There is no universal answer. But for a beginner planning to open the wine tonight, the second bottle is probably the smarter choice. The first may eventually become the greater wine. But greatness in the future does not guarantee pleasure at dinner tonight. That is one of the most important lessons in Barolo. Do not buy the bottle with the greatest reputation. Buy the bottle that fits the moment. Young Barolo often begins with fresh red fruit, flowers, herbs, and spice. Then the tannins arrive. The wine may smell inviting, but feel dry and severe in your mouth. This is where many first experiences go wrong. Someone expects a dark, rich, smooth red wine. Instead, they receive a pale wine with sharp acidity and tannins that feel like fine sandpaper. The wine may not be bad. It may simply be young, closed, served at the wrong temperature, or sitting beside the wrong food. After several years, the different parts can begin to come together. The fruit becomes less bright and more savory. The tannins soften. Aromas of tobacco, dried herbs, leather, earth, and spice may appear. With more age, the wine can move toward dried roses, mushrooms, truffle, autumn leaves, and forest floor. But older does not automatically mean better. Some people love the energy and perfume of young Barolo. Others prefer the earthy complexity of a mature bottle. An older wine may also have been stored badly, and no famous label can repair years spent in a hot room. The goal is not to discover one perfect age for every Barolo. The goal is to match the bottle to the experience you want. Before buying, answer 3 questions. When will you drink it? What style do you enjoy? And how much patience do you have? When you plan to open the bottle this weekend, ask for something already expressive and ready to drink. Tell the wine merchant, "This is my first Barolo. I want to drink it this month. I would prefer something aromatic and balanced, not extremely tannic." That sentence is more useful than asking for the highest-rated bottle in the shop. A producer's basic Barolo can be the ideal first step. It may combine grapes from several areas, giving you a balanced picture of the producer's style. It may also become approachable earlier than the producer's most serious single vineyard wines. For elegance, begin with La Morra, Verduno, Barolo, or Castiglione Falletto. For bigger, more structured wines and long-term aging, look toward Monforte d'Alba or Serralunga d'Alba. Do not assume that the most expensive bottle is the best first bottle. The best first bottle is the one that is ready when you are. A useful experiment is to buy 2 bottles of the same wine. Open one now and keep the second for several years. That will teach you more about Barolo than reading 20 tasting notes. Serve Barolo slightly cool. Do not serve it at the temperature of a warm living room. Too much heat makes the alcohol stand out and can hide the wine's finer details. Use a large glass. Nebbiolo is highly aromatic, so give it room to open. With a young bottle, open it early and taste it. When it feels closed, give it more air. Some young bottles improve after 1 or 2 hours in a decanter. Very old Barolo needs gentler treatment. It may contain sediment, but it may also lose its aromas quickly after being exposed to oxygen. And please give Barolo some food. Young, tannic Barolo can feel aggressive when you drink it alone. Put it beside braised beef, roast meat, mushroom risotto, pasta with a rich meat sauce, aged cheese, or a dish with truffle, and the wine begins to make much more sense. You do not need to prepare a complete meal from Piemonte. You simply need food with enough richness, protein, fat, or savory depth to stand beside the wine. A delicate salad will probably lose that fight. Now let's return to the shelf where we started. The bottles still carry unfamiliar names: Barolo, La Morra, Canubi, Serralunga d'Alba, Riserva. But now those names are not obstacles. They are clues. Barolo is made entirely from Nebbiolo. The villages can guide you toward perfume, balance, or power. Pale color does not mean a weak wine. Riserva does not automatically mean better. A famous vineyard does not matter more than a good producer. Your first Barolo does not need to be rare, old, or painfully expensive. It only needs to be well-made, ready to drink, and suited to your taste. Serve it slightly cool. Use a large glass. Give it air when it needs it. Put real food on the table. Then pay attention to what happens over the next hour. That is where Barolo becomes fascinating. Not in memorizing every hill, not in pretending you can smell 12 different things at once, but in watching the wine move from cherries and roses to spice, earth, tobacco, and something you cannot quite name. The king of wines may still be complicated, but it no longer needs to be confusing. So which Barolo sounds right for you? Perfume, balance, or power? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe for more beginner-friendly wine guides, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.